My marriage was like my firewall, looked solid, but a clever virus got through. The difference is, when malware infects your system, you can delete it. When it infects your life, you have to get creative. I'm Harper Lane, 42 years old, cybersecurity analyst for Austin Tech Solutions, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Nice house in South Austin, decent job keeping corporate networks safe from hackers, and a wife who sold pharmaceuticals to doctors with more money than sense. Celeste was beautiful, ambitious, and apparently bored enough with our 12-year marriage to start shopping around. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The first sign came on a Tuesday night in September. I was debugging a particularly nasty piece of ransomware when Celeste walked in, phone pressed to her ear, laughing at something that definitely wasn't me. "Oh, Reed, you're terrible," she giggled, disappearing into the kitchen. Reed, I knew that name. Reed Morrison, the golden boy of PharmaMax, Celeste's biggest client. 6'2", perfectly styled hair, the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits to sell overpriced pills to desperate people. I'd met him at company parties, the type who called everyone buddy while looking over their shoulder for someone more important. "Who was that?" I asked when she returned. "Just work stuff. Reed's planning a conference in Belize next month. Big pharmaceutical summit. Sounds expensive." "It's business, Harper. You wouldn't understand." That stung, but I let it slide. Celeste had been pulling away for months, working late, taking weekend calls, coming home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I told myself it was career stress. The pharmaceutical world was cutthroat, and Celeste had always been ambitious. But ambition doesn't explain why your wife starts buying lingerie she never wears at home. I found the Victoria's Secret receipts while looking for our insurance papers. Celeste had always been practical about underwear. Cotton, comfortable, nothing fancy. These receipts showed silk, lace, things with names like Midnight Seduction and Forbidden Fantasy. Either she was planning the world's most elaborate surprise for our anniversary, or someone else was getting the show. That's when I called Marv. Marvin Kowalski was old-school private investigator, the kind who still wore fedoras and carried a flask. We'd worked together on a corporate espionage case 2 years back. Some idiot executive was selling trade secrets to competitors. Marv had caught him red-handed, and I'd provided the digital forensics. He owed me a favor. "Harper, my boy," Marv's gravelly voice crackled through the phone. "What can I do for you?" "I need surveillance on my wife." Silence. Then, "Jesus, Harper. You sure about this?" "No, but I need to know. It's gonna cost you, and it's gonna hurt." "How much?" $500 a day, plus expenses. "And kid, if she's cheating, you're not gonna like what I find." "Find it anyway." Marv worked fast. 3 days later, he called with an address. The Driscoll Hotel downtown, room 412. High-end suite, charged to Reed Morrison's corporate account. The same Reed who was supposedly planning conferences in Belize. "They've been meeting twice a week for 2 months, Marv reported. "Always Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. She tells her office she's making client calls. He blocks out his calendar for strategic planning sessions." "Strategic planning, right. Harper, there's more. I got photos, but send them." The email arrived 10 minutes later. 23 high-resolution images of my wife and Reed Morrison playing house at Austin's fanciest hotel. Celeste wore the midnight blue lingerie from the receipts. Reed wore nothing but a satisfied smirk and what appeared to be a medical alert bracelet, odd for a guy who preached perfect health to doctors. I stared at the photos for an hour, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. This wasn't just betrayal. This was sloppy, arrogant betrayal. They were using company accounts, meeting in public places, leaving digital footprints everywhere. For a pharmaceutical sales rep and a corporate executive, they had remarkably poor operational security. That gave me an idea. I called my friend Tori Chen, a freelance cybersecurity consultant who operated in the gray areas between legal and illegal. Tori was brilliant, gender fluid, and had zero patience for corporate bullshit. "Harper, darling," Tori's voice was honey over broken glass. "What delicious chaos can I help you create today?" "I need background research on Reed Morrison, Pharma Max executive. Everything you can find through legal channels." "Legal channels? How boring. But doable. What's this about?" "He's sleeping with my wife." "Oh, honey, say no more. I'll have his digital life story by morning." Tori delivered as promised. Reed Morrison's public records painted a picture of entitled mediocrity. Average grades at expensive schools, family connections that landed him executive positions, a pattern of job hopping whenever things got difficult. But the interesting stuff was in his medical records. "How did you get these?" I asked Tori over coffee at Radio Coffee on South Lamar. "Public health database. Turns out our boy Reed has been treated for recurring genital herpes at 3 different clinics over the past 5 years. He's been very careful to keep it quiet, pays cash, uses different names, but the prescription records don't lie." I nearly choked on my espresso. "Herpes?" "Type 2, the gift that keeps on giving. Highly contagious, especially during outbreaks. And according to his pharmacy records, he's been having a lot of outbreaks lately." The pieces clicked into place. Reed's medical alert bracelet, his secretive behavior, the way he'd avoided shaking hands at company parties. The golden boy of pharmaceutical sales had an STD that could destroy his career if it became public knowledge. "Does Celeste know?" I asked. "Based on her recent medical appointments, I'd say no. She's been seeing her gynecologist more frequently, but no STD tests." "Yet?" "Yet?" Tori grinned wickedly. "Herpes has an incubation period. She might not show symptoms for weeks or months, but when she does..." I felt the first stirring of what would become a beautiful revenge. Reed Morrison thought he could steal my wife without consequences. He was about to learn that in the digital age, everyone leaves traces. That evening, Celeste returned from another client meeting with Reed. She was glowing, practically humming as she showered. I watched her through the bathroom door, this woman I'd loved for 12 years, washing off another man's touch. "Good meeting?" I asked when she emerged. "Very productive. Reed's thinking of expanding his client base. Big opportunities coming up." "I bet." "Hey, did you know Reed wears a medical alert bracelet?" Celeste froze, towel halfway to her hair. "What?" "I noticed it at the Christmas party last year. Seemed odd for someone so young and healthy." I never noticed." "Probably nothing. Just curious what condition would require constant monitoring. Diabetes, maybe? Heart problems? Something contagious?" The color drained from Celeste's face. "Why would you think it's contagious?" "No reason. Just wondering what's important enough to wear a medical alert for. Some conditions can be transmitted through close contact, you know? Skin-to-skin stuff." Celeste spent the next 20 minutes Googling medical alert bracelets on her phone. Then she made a phone call from the garage, thinking I couldn't hear her. "Reed, it's me. We need to talk. Now." The next morning, Celeste called in sick to work and drove straight to her doctor's office. I know because I'd installed a GPS tracker on her car weeks earlier. Perfectly legal, since both our names were on the registration. She spent 2 hours at the clinic, then drove to Reed's office building. Even from my position across the street, I could see the argument through his floor-to-ceiling windows. Lots of gesturing, pointing, what appeared to be accusations flying back and forth. Reed tried to calm her down, but Celeste was having none of it. She threw something, looked like a coffee mug, that shattered against his office wall. Then she stormed out, leaving Reed standing in his expensive suit, surrounded by broken ceramic. My phone buzzed with a text from Celeste. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." But she wasn't at work. The GPS tracker showed her parked outside a bar in East Austin, the kind of dive where pharmaceutical sales reps don't usually conduct business. I drove over and found her 3 drinks deep, crying into her phone. Sarah, it's Celeste. I need to tell you something, and you're going to hate me. Sarah was Celeste's best friend since college, married to my former drinking buddy Mike. We used to do couples dinners every month until life got busy and friendships faded. Now Celeste was confessing her affair to Sarah, looking for absolution she didn't deserve. I didn't interrupt. Instead, I went home and prepared for the conversation I knew was coming. Celeste stumbled in around midnight, mascara streaked, reeking of gin and poor decisions. Harper, we need to talk. I figured. She collapsed onto the couch, still wearing the dress she'd worn to meet Reed that afternoon. I've been seeing someone. I know. That surprised her. You know? Celeste, you've been about as subtle as malware. Late nights, new underwear, mysterious phone calls with Reed Morrison. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? How long have you known? Long enough to have you followed. Long enough to get photos. Long enough to run a background check on your boyfriend and discover his little medical situation. Celeste went very still. What medical situation? I pulled out my phone and showed her Tori's research. Reed's medical records, prescription histories, clinic visits. Genital herpes type 2, recurring outbreaks. He's been managing it for 5 years, but it's highly contagious, especially during intimate contact. Celeste stared at the screen, her face cycling through confusion, horror, and rage. He told me he was clean. He said he'd been tested. Technically, he probably was tested. For other things. Herpes isn't part of standard STD panels unless specifically requested. Most people don't know they have it until they have symptoms. Symptoms? Painful blisters, burning during urination, flu-like symptoms during outbreaks. Sound familiar? Celeste's hand went to her throat. She'd been complaining about feeling run down lately, attributed it to work stress. Now she was connecting dots she didn't want to connect. I need to get tested. Probably a good idea. And Celeste? I've already filed for divorce. Papers should be served tomorrow. She looked up sharply. Harper, wait. We can work this out. It was a mistake. I was confused. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me. 12 years of marriage, and you threw it away for a guy who gave you herpes and lies about medical conferences in Belize. How did you... There is no conference in Belize. I checked. Reed made it up so you'd think he was important and well-traveled. The guy's a fraud, Celeste. A diseased fraud who's been using you for closeness while risking your health. Celeste started crying again, but I felt nothing. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd betrayed everything we'd built together. I'll stay at Sarah's tonight, she whispered. Good luck with that. I called Mike earlier, told him about your affair. Turns out Sarah doesn't appreciate friends who cheat on their husbands. Something about setting a bad example. Celeste's face went white. You told Mike? Mike's my friend too. Was my friend. Figured he deserved to know his wife was getting relationship advice from someone who can't keep her legs closed. You bastard. I'm the bastard. You're the one who's been sleeping with Reed Morrison in hotel rooms charged to his corporate account. Speaking of which, I sent copies of those receipts to PharmaMax's ethics department. Turns out they frown on executives using company funds for personal entertainment. Celeste stood up unsteadily. You're destroying my life. No, Celeste, you destroyed your life. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. This isn't over, Harper. I'll fight you on everything. The house, the cars, the savings accounts. You'll get nothing. We'll see about that. After she left, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and called Tori. How'd it go, darling? Phase 1 complete. She knows about Reed's condition and she's probably infected. Sarah won't speak to her. Mike thinks I'm an asshole for telling him, and Reed's about to have a very uncomfortable conversation with HR. What's phase 2? Now we get creative. The next morning brought consequences. Reed Morrison was suspended pending investigation into misuse of company funds. The hotel receipts I'd provided showed a clear pattern of personal expenses charged to corporate accounts, not just the room, but room service, spa treatments, even champagne and strawberries delivered to the suite. Celeste tried calling me 17 times before noon. I let them all go to voicemail. Harper, please call me back. Reed's been suspended. They're saying he might be fired. This is all getting out of hand. Message 2. I talked to a lawyer. He says you can't use illegally obtained evidence in divorce proceedings. Those photos won't hold up in court. Message 3. Sarah won't return my calls. Mike told everyone at the office about us. People are staring at me, Harper. This has to stop. But it was just getting started. I spent the afternoon visiting Reed's neighborhood, a trendy development in West Austin, where houses cost more than most people make in a decade. Reed's house was particularly obnoxious. Modern, minimalist design, perfectly manicured lawn, Tesla in the driveway with vanity plates reading Pharma 1. I parked across the street and waited. Reed emerged around 4 o'clock looking haggard. His perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled. Being suspended from your dream job will do that to a guy. He climbed into his Tesla and drove to a Starbucks on South First. I followed at a distance, watching him order what appeared to be a very large, very caffeinated beverage. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. When Reed returned to his car, he found a manila envelope under his windshield wiper. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message printed in block letters. Your medical records are public knowledge. Resign from PharmaMax or everyone learns about your condition. I watched from my car as Reed read the note, his face cycling through confusion, fear, and rage. He looked around the parking lot, searching for whoever had left the message, but I was just another guy in a Honda Civic, invisible among the Austin traffic. Reed drove straight to Celeste's new apartment, a sad little place near the airport where she'd moved after I changed the locks on our house. I followed, curious to see how they'd handle their first crisis as a couple. The argument was visible through her living room window. Reed waving the note, Celeste gesturing wildly, both of them clearly panicked. Their affair had been fun when it was secret hotel meetings and stolen afternoons. Now it was public humiliation, career destruction, and medical consequences. After an hour, Reed stormed out. Celeste followed him to the parking lot, still arguing. I couldn't hear the words, but body language told the story. Accusations, blame, the ugly dissolution of a relationship built on lies. Reed drove away, leaving Celeste standing alone in the parking lot of her cheap apartment complex. She looked small, defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd been sneaking around behind my back just days earlier. My phone buzzed with another call from Celeste. This time I answered. Harper, please, we need to talk. I'm listening. Someone's threatening Reed. Anonymous notes, mentions of his medical condition. This has gone too far. Has it? You can't do this. It's harassment. It's illegal. Is it? Seems like someone's just sharing publicly available information. Medical records are part of the public health database, Celeste. Anyone can access them if they know how to look. Stop playing games. I know it's you. Prove it. Silence on the line. Then, what do you want? I want you to understand consequences. You wanted to play games with our marriage, fine, but games have rules and cheaters get disqualified. I'll give you the house, the cars, whatever you want in the divorce. Too late for negotiations. Should have thought about that before you started sleeping with Reed Morrison in hotel rooms. I hung up and drove home, feeling something close to satisfaction for the first time in months. But Reed Morrison wasn't finished. The next morning, I arrived at work to find my boss, Grant Peterson, waiting in my office. Grant was typical tech bro management, young, enthusiastic, and just smart enough to be dangerous. Harper, we need to talk. I got a call from PharmaMax's legal department. They're claiming you've been harassing one of their executives. Reed Morrison? That's the one. They say you've been stalking him, sending threatening messages, accessing confidential medical records. They want you fired and prosecuted. I lean back in my chair. Grant, do you know what I do for a living? You're our cybersecurity analyst. Right. I protect our networks from people who try to steal information, compromise systems, or gain unauthorized access to confidential data. Would you say I'm good at my job? The best we've got. So when I tell you that Reed Morrison is full of shit, and that everything I've done has been completely legal, you can trust that I know the difference between legitimate research and criminal harassment. Grant looked uncomfortable. They're threatening to sue the company if we don't fire you. Let them try. I've got documentation for everything: public records requests, legal surveillance, information obtained through proper channels. Reed Morrison is a pharmaceutical executive who's been misusing company funds and exposing partners to communicable diseases. If anyone should be worried about lawsuits, it's him. You're sure about this? Grant, I've been doing cybersecurity for 15 years. I don't make moves unless I'm sure. Grant nodded slowly. Okay. But Harper, whatever personal stuff you've got going on with this guy, keep it away from the office. I don't need corporate lawyers calling me before my morning coffee. Understood. After Grant left, I called Tori with an update. Reed's trying to get me fired. Time for phase 3. Oh, goody. What did you have in mind? Remember that corporate espionage case we worked on? The executive who was selling trade secrets? Sure. We caught him because he was sloppy with his digital footprints. Reed's been just as sloppy. Hotel receipts on company accounts, personal calls from corporate phones, using PharmaMax resources to conduct his affair with Celeste. I think their compliance department would be very interested in a detailed report. You want me to compile everything? Everything. Financial records, communication logs, timeline of the affair, medical records showing he's been exposing partners to disease while representing a pharmaceutical company. Make it look like a professional compliance audit. Harper, you beautiful bastard. This is going to destroy him. That's the idea. Tori worked her magic over the weekend. By Monday morning, PharmaMax's compliance department had received an anonymous but thoroughly documented report detailing Reed Morrison's misconduct. The report was professionally formatted, legally sound, and absolutely damning. Reed was fired by noon. Celeste called me crying. They terminated him, Harper. No severance, no references, nothing. He's blacklisted from the pharmaceutical industry. Sounds like consequences. His wife left him. She took the kids and moved back to Dallas. Reed's lost everything. Good. How can you be so cold? Easy. I remember what it felt like to find photos of my wife sleeping with another man in a hotel room. Coldness comes naturally after that. I made a mistake, Harper. One mistake, and you've destroyed 2 lives. 2 lives? What about mine, Celeste? What about our marriage, our future, everything I thought we had together? You didn't just cheat on me. You exposed me to disease, lied to my face for months, and threw away 12 years like it meant nothing. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix herpes. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry is just a word people use when they get caught. I hung up and went back to work, but concentration was difficult. Part of me felt satisfied. Reed Morrison had faced consequences for his actions, and Celeste was learning that adultery wasn't a game without stakes. But another part of me felt empty, like I'd won a war by destroying everything I'd once cared about. That evening, Mike called. We hadn't spoken since I'd told him about Celeste's affair and its impact on his wife Sarah. Harper, we need to talk. I'm listening. Sarah's been a mess since you told me about Celeste. She feels guilty for not seeing the signs, angry at herself for giving relationship advice to someone who was cheating. It's affecting our marriage. I'm sorry, Mike. I thought you deserved to know. Maybe. But the way you handled it, calling me up out of the blue, dropping this bomb, then disappearing, that was messed up, man. What was I supposed to do? Let Celeste keep using Sarah as her confidant while she was screwing around? You could have talked to us together, given us a chance to process it. Instead, you used us as weapons in your revenge against Celeste. That stung because it was true. I had used Mike and Sarah, turning their friendship into collateral damage in my war against my wife's betrayal. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got called out? I thought about that. Both, probably. Harper, I get that you're hurt. I get that Celeste screwed you over. But the way you're handling this, the stalking, the harassment, turning friends against each other, it's not you, man. You're better than this. Am I? Because right now, I feel like the guy whose wife gave him herpes and whose friends think he's the asshole for being upset about it. Nobody thinks you're an asshole for being upset. We think you're an asshole for the way you're expressing that upset. There's a difference. After Mike hung up, I sat in my empty house drinking bourbon and wondering if he was right. Had I crossed lines I couldn't uncross? Had my pursuit of justice become something uglier? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Reed's not the only one who can play games. I stared at the message, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Someone was escalating, and I had a feeling things were about to get much more complicated. The next morning brought answers. I woke to find my car keyed, long scratches running from bumper to bumper on both sides. The word asshole was carved into my hood in letters 6 inches tall. But that was just the opening move. When I arrived at work, Grant was waiting with a grim expression and a manila folder. Harper, we've got a problem. Someone filed a complaint with the state licensing board, claiming you've been using your cybersecurity credentials to illegally access confidential medical records. That's bullshit. Maybe. But they've got documentation, screenshots of database queries, timestamps, even your login credentials. It looks bad. I reviewed the evidence, feeling my stomach sink. Someone had fabricated a compelling case that I'd hacked into medical databases to obtain Reed's records. The documentation was fake, but sophisticated, the kind of thing that would fool investigators who didn't understand the technical details. This is a setup, Grant. Someone's trying to frame me. Can you prove that? Give me time. You've got 48 hours before I have to suspend you pending investigation. And Harper, if this is real, if you actually did hack medical records, you're not just fired. You're looking at federal charges. I spent the day analyzing the fabricated evidence, tracing digital fingerprints, looking for clues about who had created such an elaborate frame job. The work was sophisticated, but not perfect. Whoever had done this understood cybersecurity, but had made subtle mistakes that revealed their identity. The evidence pointed to Reed Morrison. That surprised me. Reed was a pharmaceutical sales executive, not a hacker. He shouldn't have the technical skills to create convincing fake evidence of cybercrime, unless he'd hired help. I called Tori with my findings. Interesting, she said after reviewing my analysis. The metadata shows this was created using professional forensic software, the kind law enforcement uses to build cases against hackers. Where would Reed get access to that? He wouldn't, but I know someone who would. Who? Remember that corporate espionage case we worked on? The executive who was selling trade secrets? Yeah. What about him? His name was David Chen. My cousin. I felt the pieces clicking into place. Your cousin was the corporate spy? Family's complicated, darling. David went to prison for 18 months, lost his cybersecurity clearance, can't get legitimate work in the field anymore, but he still has the skills and the software. And Reed hired him to frame me. Looks that way. David's been desperate for money since he got out. Reed probably offered him enough cash to make it worth the risk. Can you prove it? Give me 24 hours. While Tori worked on exposing Reed's frame job, I dealt with the immediate crisis. My car was vandalized, my job was threatened, and my reputation was under attack. Reed Morrison might have lost his position at PharmaMax, but he wasn't going down without a fight. That evening, Celeste showed up at my house. She looked terrible, hollow-eyed, thin, like she hadn't been sleeping or eating properly. We need to end this, Harper, before someone gets seriously hurt. Someone already got hurt. Me, remember? Reed's talking about hiring a private investigator to dig up dirt on you. He's obsessed with revenge, convinced you've ruined his life. I didn't ruin his life. His choices ruined his life. I just made sure there were consequences. He's not thinking rationally. He blames you for everything, losing his job, his wife leaving, being blacklisted from the industry. He wants to destroy you. Let him try. Harper, he hired a hacker to frame you for cybercrime. If that doesn't work, he'll find something else. This is escalating beyond anything we can control. I studied Celeste's face, seeing genuine fear there. Are you worried about me or about yourself? Both. If Reed goes too far, if he does something illegal, I could be considered an accomplice. We were partners in this affair, Harper. If he gets arrested, I might go down with him. Sounds like you picked the wrong boyfriend. I picked wrong about a lot of things. But we can still fix this before it gets worse. How? Reed wants a meeting. You, him, and me. Neutral location, no tricks. Just a conversation about how to end this without anyone else getting hurt. I laughed. You want me to sit down with the guy who's been sleeping with my wife and trying to frame me for federal crimes? What could possibly go wrong? Harper, please. I know you have every right to hate us both, but this has to stop somewhere. It stops when Reed Morrison learns that actions have consequences, not before. Celeste left without another word, but her warning stayed with me. Reed was escalating, becoming desperate, and desperate people make dangerous choices. The next morning, Tori called with proof of Reed's frame job. Got him, darling. David Chen left digital fingerprints all over that fabricated evidence. I can trace the creation timeline, show exactly when and how he built the fake case against you. Enough to clear my name? Enough to send Reed Morrison to prison for conspiracy and computer fraud. Want me to call the FBI? I thought about that. Having Reed arrested would certainly end his campaign against me, but it would also escalate things beyond any hope of resolution. Once federal charges were filed, there would be investigations, trials, publicity. My name would be in the papers, connected to a sordid story of adultery and revenge. Not yet. I want to try something else first. What do you have in mind? Reed wants a meeting. Maybe it's time to give him one. I called Celeste and agreed to meet with Reed, but on my terms. Neutral location, public place, and I'd be recording everything for my own protection. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Austin, one of those trendy places with exposed brick walls and baristas who take their foam art seriously. Reed arrived first, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. His perfect hair was unkempt, his expensive clothes wrinkled, his face drawn with exhaustion and stress. Celeste came in 5 minutes later, sitting between us like a buffer zone. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who'd caused this mess was now trying to mediate its resolution. Harper, Reed began, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. We need to end this. I agree. You stop trying to frame me for crimes I didn't commit, and I'll stop exposing crimes you actually did commit. You've destroyed my life. No, Reed. You destroyed your life when you decided to steal my wife and lie about your medical condition. I just made sure people knew about it. You had no right. I had every right. When you started sleeping with my wife, you made it my business. When you exposed her to disease without her knowledge, you made it everyone's business. Reed's face flushed red. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But people did get hurt. Celeste got hurt. Your wife got hurt. Your kids got hurt. I got hurt. The only person who didn't seem to consider consequences was you. So what do you want? Money? An apology? What will it take to end this? I leaned back in my chair, studying this man who'd thought he could take whatever he wanted without paying a price. I want you to disappear, Reed. Leave Austin. Leave Texas. Start over somewhere else where you can't hurt people I care about. I can't just leave. I have obligations, responsibilities. You had those before you started this affair. Didn't stop you then. Harper, Celeste interrupted. Be reasonable. Reed's lost his job, his marriage, his reputation. Isn't that enough? Is it? Reed, are you planning to stop trying to frame me for cybercrime? Reed looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. David Chen. Professional forensic software. Fabricated evidence of database hacking. Ring any bells? The color drained from Reed's face. How did you— I'm a cybersecurity analyst, Reed. This is what I do for a living. Did you really think you could out-hack someone whose job is catching hackers? That evidence is real. You did access those medical databases illegally. Prove it. In court, under oath, with federal investigators examining every piece of your fabricated evidence. Reed went very quiet. He understood the threat. If he pushed this any further, I'd expose his frame job and he'd face federal charges for conspiracy and computer fraud. What do you want? He asked again, his voice barely above a whisper. I want you gone. Out of Austin, out of Texas, out of our lives. I want you to stop trying to destroy my career and start accepting responsibility for your own choices. And if I don't? I pulled out my phone and showed him a video file. This is security footage from the Driscoll Hotel, showing you and Celeste entering room 412 on 17 different occasions. I also have your corporate credit card statements, medical records, and documented proof that you hired David Chen to frame me for cybercrime. One phone call to the FBI, and you'll be facing federal charges. Reed stared at the phone, understanding that I held his future in my hands. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a choice. Leave voluntarily or leave in handcuffs. Your decision. Harper, Celeste said, this is going too far. Is it? Reed tried to destroy my career with fabricated evidence. He exposed you to disease without your knowledge. He used company funds to pay for your affair. How far is too far, Celeste? She didn't have an answer for that. Reed sat in silence for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, I'll leave Austin. When? Give me 2 weeks to settle my affairs. 1 week, and Reed? If you ever contact Celeste again, if you ever try to interfere with my life, if you so much as drive through Austin on your way somewhere else, I'll release everything. The FBI, the media, your ex-wife's divorce attorney, everyone gets copies. Reed stood up without another word and walked out of the coffee shop. Through the window, I watched him climb into his Tesla and drive away, looking like a man who'd finally understood the true cost of his choices. Celeste remained seated, staring into her untouched latte. Are you satisfied now? Not yet. What else do you want, Harper? You've destroyed Reed, humiliated me, lost most of our mutual friends. What's left? The divorce. Fair division of assets, no alimony, clean break. And then? Then we both try to rebuild our lives. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about that question. Forgiveness implied a relationship worth preserving, trust worth rebuilding. But the woman sitting across from me wasn't the woman I'd married 12 years ago. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who could lie, cheat, and risk my health without apparent remorse. No, I said finally. I don't think I will. Celeste nodded, tears starting to flow. I deserve that. Yes, you do. She left the coffee shop without looking back, and I sat alone with my victory. Reed Morrison was gone, Celeste was out of my life, and I'd successfully defended myself against every attack they'd mounted. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated, complete. Instead, I felt empty. That evening, I sat in my house now since Celeste had signed over her share as part of our divorce settlement, drinking bourbon and reviewing the wreckage of the past month. I'd won every battle, achieved every objective, and emerged victorious from a war I never wanted to fight. But victory tasted like ashes. My phone rang. Grant Peterson calling from the office. Harper, good news. The state licensing board dropped their investigation. Turns out the evidence against you was fabricated. They found digital fingerprints proving it was a frame job. That's great, Grant. You don't sound happy about it. Just tired. It's been a long month. Take some time off. You've earned it. After Grant hung up, I poured another bourbon and tried to figure out what came next. Reed Morrison was gone. Celeste was out of my life, and my reputation was intact. I'd achieved everything I'd set out to accomplish, but I'd also lost everything that mattered. My marriage was over, my friendships were damaged, and I'd discovered a capacity for ruthless revenge that I wasn't sure I liked. The house felt too quiet, too empty, too much like a monument to a life that no longer existed. I thought about selling it, starting over somewhere else, but that felt like running away from consequences I'd created. My phone buzzed with a text from Tori. Heard Reed left town. How are you holding up? Fine, I texted back. It's over. Is it? Or is it just beginning? I stared at that message for a long time, wondering what she meant. The war with Reed and Celeste was over, but the aftermath was just starting. I had to figure out how to live with what I'd done, how to rebuild relationships I'd damaged, how to move forward from the wreckage of my marriage. 3 days later, I got my answer. I was leaving work when I found a woman waiting by my car. She was about 40, well-dressed, with the kind of tired eyes that spoke of recent trauma. Harper Lane? Yes. I'm Jennifer Morrison, Reed's ex-wife. My stomach clenched. Mrs. Morrison, I'm sorry for... Don't apologize. I wanted to thank you. That surprised me. Thank me? For exposing what Reed really was. I suspected he was cheating, but I didn't know about the disease, the company fraud, any of it. Your investigation gave me the evidence I needed for my divorce. I wasn't trying to help you. I was trying to hurt him. I know. But you helped me anyway. My children and I are free of Reed Morrison, and we have you to thank for that. She handed me an envelope. Reed's new address, in case you need it for legal purposes. He moved to Phoenix, got a job selling used cars. Quite a come-down from pharmaceutical executive. Mrs. Morrison, I'm sorry your children had to go through this. They're resilient, and they're better off knowing the truth about their father than living with his lies. After she left, I sat in my car reading Reed's new address and thinking about unintended consequences. My revenge against Reed had collateral damage. His children, his ex-wife, even Celeste's friends and family. But some of that damage had been beneficial, freeing people from Reed's deception and manipulation. Maybe that was the real lesson. Actions have consequences, but those consequences ripple outward in ways we can't always predict or control. 6 months later, I was debugging a particularly nasty piece of ransomware when my phone rang. Celeste's name appeared on the screen, the first time she'd called since our divorce was finalized. Harper? I wanted you to know I'm moving to Denver. New job, fresh start. Good for you. I also wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not just say the words. I hurt you in ways that can't be fixed, and I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. Are you okay? Happy? I thought about that. Was I happy? Not exactly. But I was free, honest, and no longer living with lies. That felt like progress. I'm okay, Celeste. I hope Denver works out for you. Harper? For what it's worth, I think you're a good man who got pushed too far. What you did to Reed and me, we deserved it. After she hung up, I returned to my ransomware analysis, but my mind kept drifting to the past year. I'd discovered my wife's betrayal, exposed her lover's fraud, defended myself against false accusations, and emerged victorious from a war I never wanted to fight. The cost had been everything I thought I wanted: my marriage, my friendships, my comfortable life. But I'd gained something too: the knowledge that I could survive betrayal, fight back against injustice, and rebuild from wreckage. My firewall had been breached, but I'd learned to build better defenses. And sometimes, The best defense is a devastating offense that leaves your enemies unable to attack again. Reed Morrison learned that lesson in Phoenix, selling used cars and living with the consequences of his choices. Celeste learned it in Denver, starting over with the knowledge that actions have prices. And I learned it in Austin, sitting in my empty house, debugging malware and remembering that sometimes the most dangerous viruses are the ones that look like love.